Today we're building a system to store a miter saw and a table saw in the van. Hey, I'm Matt with the Handy Manual, and today we're going to be looking at an interesting issue: how to best store a table saw and a miter saw in the van. The Ford Transits with the high top roofs offer more space to be able to fit these tools, but how do you best fit them in the Ford E-Series vans or other low roof vans? Traditionally, these larger tools are stored in a fixed way, typically by the side doors of the van, but that impedes access to the van from the side doors. However, I was able to figure out a way to store these tools without sacrificing access to the van from the side. I'm excited to show you what I came up with. Let's jump into the build.
Step 1. Measure and build around your saws. You've only got so much height and width to work with, so first make sure you be able to fit a table saw on top of your miter saw. To give you a reference, my saws are both 10-inch saws. I found that the best configuration was to store both my miter saw and table saw on their sides, as you can see here. Now I've gotten a few comments asking if keeping the miter saw in a position like that throws it out of square. I haven't had any issues, but take into account the type of saw you have and your space allowances to fit it in a different way if needed. The components of this build consist of a 2x10 board bolted to the partition, heavy-duty T-hinges, and 3/4 inch plywood to construct a housing for the saws. I will say that 3/4 inch may be a bit flimsy to store both saws, and you may see some slight deformation of the housing depending on the weight of your saws and dimensions of the housing. But when every inch of space is a factor and considering the depth of the saw, 3/4 inch ply was the best option for my situation. I've swung it open and closed many times and the unit hasn't broken or even cracked. Step number 2, attach the 2x10 to the partition and install the hinges. I cut the top of the 2x to match the angle of the partition, and using existing cutouts in the partition, I attached the board with 1/4 inch bolts and washers. This piece acts as the attachment point for the saw housing. Next, I installed the heavy-duty T-hinges, spacing them as close to the top and bottom as possible. Now, this channel wouldn't be able to grow without your support, so if you're getting some value out of this video, I'd love it if you could hit the like button, and if you're interested in more content like this, consider subscribing. Step number 3, build the saw housing and attach it to the hinges. The final step is to actually build the housing and install it. I built the box according to the dimensions I marked out in the first step and used the same method of dados and rabbets for constructing it to try and add every bit of sturdiness I could. The only dados were for the center dividing shelf, and I rabbeted the tops and bottoms of each side piece. I assembled the pieces with construction adhesive and screws. With the shelf built, it was time to attach it to the hinges. I wanted the shelf to rest on the floor of the van. I knew the weight of it plus the saws would slump it down to the floor, so I shimmed up the back edge off the floor about 1/8 to 1/4 inch so that I could still swing it out easily enough. I had it swung open with the outer edge propped up to be able to get my drill in there to install the screws. As a bonus tip, I installed a small gate latch to the floor towards the back of the housing so that I wouldn't slide in transit. With this built, you now still have access to the van from the inside, and I typically swing this out when it's time to empty the toilet.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the final video in this series on how to construct everything in your van. I want to congratulate you on finishing the series. Hopefully at this point you have a roadmap from beginning to end on how to build your own setup. Again, I created this series to help other tradespeople get ideas and learn how to create a mobile tool organization system for themselves. I've saved a lot of time and money since building my setup, and I hope you do too. Be sure to comment below and let me know what your biggest challenge is when setting out to build your own setup. Good luck with your build, take care, and be well.